Republicans did more than win the White House last night. They also maintained majorities in both chambers of Congress. The Democrats did pick up a Senate seat in New Hampshire. Governor Maggie Hassan has claimed victory over incumbent Kelly Ayotte, though Ayotte has not yet conceded. Regardless, it won't affect the balance of power in the Senate. On the other side, this morning, House Speaker Paul Ryan talked about what this consolidation of power means.
We do remain a sharply divided country. But now, as we do every 4 years, we have to work to heal the divisions of a long campaign. I think President-elect Donald Trump set the perfect tone last night for doing just this. And I know President Obama and Secretary Clinton are committed to bringing the country together. This needs to be a time of redemption, not a time of recrimination.
Republican control of both Congress and the White House creates a real challenge for the Massachusetts delegation, which is made up solely of Democrats. Here to talk about what this new dynamic means for Obamacare, the Supreme Court, our own state, are Congressman Michael Capuano. Good to see you. Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas, you as well, and Congressman Joe Kennedy. Good to see all three of you. Any of you learned something about America last night that you didn't know before? Anybody? Mike Capuano?
People a little bit more angry. I knew they were angry, but I didn't realize how angry they were.
How about you guys? Anything that you didn't know, Nikki Tsongas?
Well, as we went through such a divisive campaign, I wanted us to get to Election Day just to find out where we were, and I think we clearly did find that. But if you look at, well, two things. If you look at the Electoral College map, it says one thing. If you look at the popular vote, it says another thing. We are very divided as a nation, and that's what we're going to have to deal with as we make our way back to Washington.
Did you learn anything to make you better at your job last night, Joe Kennedy?
Yeah, look, I think, Jim, I'd echo what my colleagues here said, but one is, I think, important to remember that Hillary Clinton did, in fact, win the popular vote. Two, she won Massachusetts about 2-1. But three, struggled in other parts of the country, particularly around economic issues and white working class.
Do you not understand the depth, do you think, of how that, as Mike Capuano said, the depth of that agony, for lack of a better expression, or anger, I guess, how deep it ran and what people were willing to do with it?
I think an awful lot of folks underestimated it. I think when you talk to some of our colleagues, though, even a couple of our colleagues represent some of those areas in the House and were actually reelected last night while some of those voters were going for Donald Trump. So it's a little bit more complicated than I think some of the top-line headlines are coming out 24 hours after.
Let's hear for a second from the guy who is the President-elect of the United States, Donald Trump. Here he is.
For those who have chosen not to support me in the past, of which there were a few people, I'm reaching out to you for your guidance and your help so that we can work together and unify our great country.
Do you believe that, or is a Democratic member of the House in 2017 going to become, other than on issues on the margins that are not unimportant, but the big issues, are you about to become irrelevancies, you and your colleagues?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
Because I think, look, we have, as always, put forth an agenda that I think Mr. Trump last night, the President-elect, talked about working for an infrastructure project to make investments in our infrastructure.
Republicans did too. They didn't fund it.
Yeah, and so we've now got a chance, as President-elect, he said this is going to be one of his priorities. He's got a chance to make good on that promise. And look, I think Democrats are more than willing to work with him, as we have with our Republican colleagues, on issues that we think are going to move the Congress forward.
Do you think there's room for cooperation?
Well, it's not as though he has a unified party to deal with. So what we've been experiencing is that a majority that is dysfunctional. They can't work. They can't come to agreement among themselves. And I don't know that is going to change. And he certainly has differences from his party. So there's an opportunity for us.
What the look on his face means? I can't quite say. What's behind that, Congressman?
Well, there's always hope. I mean, I'm going to take him at the face value of what he said, but I also take him at the face value of what he said during the campaign about different issues. If he wants to rule in a compromising way, we'll be there to help. But if he wants to do the old hard right stuff, or if he is forced to by his own party, words are easy in politics, and today's a day that we all kind of hold hands, and we'll see soon enough whether Donald Trump wants to be, which one is he? Is he the one that is out of the deal, or is he that hard right guy who wants to throw 12 million people out of this country tomorrow?
But explain to me why I shouldn't be cynical about this, what you're all saying with some optimism. Paul Ryan, it seems to me, was not terribly willing to work with you when there wasn't a Republican president. He now has, arguably, even though he may have trouble with his own job, in a grand way, he has more power because he's got a president. Why does he care what a Democrat thinks?
He may not, but they haven't up until now anyway. But we also have a Senate, and we have a White House who knows which White House we're going to get. So this is still too new. And I think, look, America spoke. America wants us to try to work together. I think I want to try to work together. I'm willing to try that. But I'm not silly enough to think that we're all going to just hold hands and skip down the street for the next 4 years. There will be trouble. My hope is that it is minimized. And I want him to be the compromise that he claimed to be last night.
Can I use a legal term here, if I may? Tell me why Massachusetts is not screwed. We have 9 out of 9 Democrats. We have a Republican governor who probably went out of his way more than any Republican governor to savage candidate Trump, who I assume will control a lot of money, whether it's the $1 billion for your Green Line extension or that sort of thing. Why is Massachusetts not, I know you're an optimistic kind of guy. Tell me why we're not in a really deep hole.
Because, look, I think part of this, and I saw Mike nodding there, part of these are an infrastructure bill that's actually put it into law, and that's already been signed and sealed and will be delivered. So,
but not fully funded. I was right about
but
that.
But not the full 6 years of that wasn't fully funded. That being said, the Massachusetts delegation has built up over the time that, well before I got there, a reputation of working with our colleagues, Democrats and Republicans. Mike and Nikki have great relationships, as does Congressman Neal and the rest of our delegation.
Well, we know you do too. I know
of delivering, but of delivering, working with Republicans across the aisle and delivering for Massachusetts. That's why, look, Jim, it's not the first time we're going to be in the minority in the House, and they've been able to continue to deliver on issues like NIH research, and as Mike Capuano just did, $1 billion in Green Line funding that came through, by the way, a Republican-dominated House.
And we also know you did huge things in the military and women and all that sort of stuff. Let's talk about the big issue. Well, before we get to a big issue that you have no control over. What's that? No, we're going to talk big issue in the House, but one thing that you have no control, the Senate and the Supreme Court nominations. I would say of the Clintonians, the thing that makes them most nervous is obviously there's an opening. It's not going to be filled by Merrick Garland, I think it's safe to say. There are 3 justices, 2 liberals, and a liberal-leaning, occasionally swing vote, Anthony Kennedy, who are 78, 80-something, and 83.
I'm praying for good health.
But why shouldn't the Republicans now say, if the Democrats try to filibuster a nomination, hey, Harry Reid, who was your leader, said he was going to do that nuclear option thing so the majority can confirm a Supreme Court justice. If it was good enough for Harry Reid, it should be good enough for us. Why are you shaking your head?
Because he didn't do that with a Supreme Court justice.
He didn't, but he threatened to do it.
But he didn't.
Okay.
But he didn't. And so they did change the rules for other justices, for other judges. They did not. Harry Reid did not change it for a Supreme Court justice. And that is a huge dividing line, which, as partisan as the battles were in the Senate over the course of the last couple of years, even Harry Reid said, we're not going to go there. Mitch McConnell orchestrated one of the great tragedies and affronts to our Constitution, trying to delegitimize a president in the last year of his term, and just completely tearing up the Constitution, saying we're not going to confirm a legitimate a pick that was praised by everybody, Democrats and Republicans, by a president in his last year in office, which has been an atrocious decision on his part. He has the chance to actually abide by that Constitution, hopefully now, and certainly going forward. I would urge him to do so.
Are you confident that they're not going to do this, Nikki Tsongas?
Well, I'd like to actually go to a slightly different issue. So we're talking about ways in which we all hope to reach across the aisle and do infrastructure funding or whatever it may be. But and hopeful because of President-elect Trump's remarks last night. Mm-hmm. But we've also been through one of the most divisive elections in our history. And language used and demonizing of people and divide and conquer. And I think the task we are going to have as a party in the minority is holding Mr. Trump to task around trying to reach across the aisle, heal this country, bring people together. That's, to me, the bigger issue we're going to have to confront, even as we try to find ways, which I think we all will do. We have a track record of doing that, of working across the aisle and moving legislation through that benefits this country.
I'm going to play a little something from one of your Republican colleagues, Chris Collins. He's upstate New York or someplace near. Here's what Representative Collins had to say.
All of our top priority is to repeal Obamacare in the first 100 days. We already have the outline of a replacement plan. So I believe the wall will be coming. Congress had already moved years ago to build a large portion of that wall. Now we can put that in as a priority.
Let's break this into two. If people, some of the things I think offended the three of you and a lot of your Democratic colleagues out of Trump's mouth were the wall and the Muslim ban. Paul Ryan opposes the wall and the Muslim ban. Does that mean they're not going to happen, or does he defer to the Republican president? Anybody? Mike Capuano?
The Muslim ban will not happen. And if it happens, it'll be struck down even by the most conservative Supreme Court.
How about the wall?
The wall has been look, as far as I'm concerned, for years I've been saying that's the wrong issue to talk about. Who cares what's on the border if we have a thoughtful immigration policy about who comes into this country? I'm as pro-immigrant as anybody. I'm as liberal on these issues as anybody. I've always wanted strong borders. I don't think a wall is necessary. I think it's a waste of money. And by the way, Chris Collins comes from upstate New York. You ever been to the Canadian border? You can spit across it.
Okay, so let's talk about Obamacare. I mean, clearly they finally have the votes. It was easy to vote, 40-some times for repeal?
60.
When you knew that it
yeah.
was never going to be repealed. It was like the best of both worlds. Did they do it now? I mean, he's repeal and replace. There are a lot of parts of this law that people love, even though people love to hate the concept. Portability, keep your kid on till you're 26. No, pre-existing condition.
Pre-existing condition. Jim, I think the right way to look at this is not to say what are House Democrats going to be able to do to stop this. If they try to repeal this law, there's 20 million people that have access to health insurance now that did not have access to it before. They have to answer to those 20 million people. And all of the folks that are under 26 years old and on their parents' insurance, all of the people that have had...
All the parents who had insurance who can keep their kid on until they're 26.
All of the people that now have health coverage that were denied because of pre-existing condition. I have had, even in the past couple of weeks, people come up to me and tell me that their life was saved because of Obamacare. And I'm certain my colleagues have had those stories too. So this isn't so much the political issue. This is... They're going to confront the very human impacts of people actually getting access to quality, affordable health care.
But you're all nodding in agreement, but this is at the core. There is not a speech that this guy gave where he said we're not going to repeal and replace.
Let's see what he comes up with. I mean, now it's on him to look. There are parts of the law that I've never liked, so I'm happy to listen. He won. The Republicans won. Put your proposal on the table, and let's see what you mean by replace. Replace with what? If there's portability, if there's other... Maybe,
how do they pay it without the thing they hate is the individual mandate, which is
right.
founded at the Heritage Foundation.
That's not on us to worry about. That's their proposal. Let's see what they come up with, including funding, and see where they go with it. But you have to understand that everything we care about, when it comes to health care, when it comes to tax policy, international policy, when everything's said and done, it counts on 40 Democratic senators, whether they stand up or not. We have more than 40 on any given of the major issues. Will they stand? If they stand up, we'll stand up. Now, we can't win in the House. The numbers, it's an absolute majority in the House. There's no 40 rule. We will lose, but can we set the table? Can we provide the support across America for 40 senators to stand tall when it comes not to the details of health care, but to the principles of health care? If they come up with a decent proposal, which I don't think they can for the reasons you just said, but if they can, put it on the table and let's talk. And it's not just health care,
By
but
the way,
all and everything else.
they've had 6 years to come up with something to repeal and replace it with, and they still haven't done that.
Well, because they knew they didn't have to do it. Because
That's right.
Barack
Now they
Obama. Very
have to
quickly,
do it.
is Nancy Pelosi the right person to lead the Democratic majority against Donald Trump? Or I shouldn't say against. I know you won't like that. While Donald Trump is president, is she?
I have expressed my concerns in the past. I love Nancy Pelosi, but I'm a coach. I kind of think that there comes a time. Yeah,
And now's the time.
Well, I don't know. I've said this before on your show.
I know you have.
And look, my answer is the Democratic caucus has to go back real clearly and have this discussion, and we will be doing that next week.
Should Nancy Pelosi be reelected?
I think we have to go back and start the conversation about what next. And
How about you?
I'm a fan of Leader Pelosi, but I think there's certainly going to be a conversation going forward about what our caucus needs to do. But she's done a great job.
Great to see you.
She
Mike
has.
Capuano, thank you so much.
Thank
Good luck
Yeah,
to all of you.
thank
Nikki
you all.
Tsongas, Joe Kennedy,
you.
thank you so
Appreciate
much
it.
for your time, all three of you.